Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hello, Zach. Hello, everybody. Zach, awesome to see you again, my dear friend. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us around the worlds and the interwebs and maybe Antarctica. If anyone from Antarctica has joined, let us know because that would be great.
Uh,
Excellent to be here. We survived another week um, in our professional lives and in the holidays here in the United States. So we made it through.
yeah, this
Yeah,
was Thanksgiving week for
yeah.
us at the time of this recording. Thanksgiving was yesterday here in the United States, and a lot to be thankful for this year, Chris. A lot to be thankful for.
Yes, absolutely a lot to be thankful for. And yeah, thank you for our friendship, which has been great during this entire year. It has been excellent. Zach, is you had a big, I would say a really a big deal that happened over this last week that was
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah. Since the last time we recorded, which was
Yeah.
our look at DS9's crossover mirror episode, yeah, we picked up our puppy. So I guess today's Friday, so tomorrow he'll be 9 weeks old. He's a 9-week-old black pug male puppy, and his name's JJ, which stands for Jake Jr., which is an homage to my pug who's passed away now. I put him down a couple years ago. So it's been a whirlwind, very exhausting. It's like having an infant at home again. You know, they want to eat, they want to sleep, they want to go to the bathroom, except for there's no diaper to catch it. You got to take them outside 50 times a day, and it's exhausting. But um, it was 100% my idea. I wanted another one, and so now we have two. We have two pugs. A female who's going to be 3 in April, not April. Sorry, end of January, and then JJ, who is going to be 9 weeks old tomorrow at the time of this recording. So yeah, it's been a busy week between that, and I mean, I took time off from work this week, but because of the new puppy, so I've been home all week. But yeah, it's been busy.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. That's so precious. Congratulations to all of you. Congratulations to you on having JJ
Thank you.
and now he's got his wonderful forever home. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love dogs. We've had many conversations before
Mhm.
on the phone about dogs, right? And I am one of those believers. I'm a big animal lover too. So, but I'm one of those believers that believes of all the animals that we have on this earth, I think dogs are the animals that we as humans least deserve. And what I mean by that is dogs are so special. They don't even when you don't treat them well. I mean, hopefully you don't do that, but if you were not to treat them well, they still love you anyways. We can learn a lot from dogs as humans, right? About loving others and being kind to others, and forgiveness. I mean, there's a lot of things we can learn from dogs. So I'm a big believer in kids growing up around dogs because dogs teach them a variety of different things. Um, and yeah, so I'm a big dog, and I know you guys are too. So
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful, Zach. Yeah, my dog River, he's actually looking at me right now. He's off camera, but he's right by my side, looking at me and seeing what I'm doing. Oh no, he's leaving me. But,
perfect timing, I guess, huh?
yeah, but yeah, I'm just I love dogs. I love my golden
Yeah,
retrievers. Yeah.
yeah. I grew up with both dogs and cats and lizards and stuff like that. And as I got older, I still like cats a lot, but I'm definitely a dog person. Love dogs. Pugs are my favorite breed. They're just great companions, lap dogs. You don't have to do a whole lot with them,
Mhm.
and they love that little curly tails wagging when you come home, and they just love you, and it's wonderful. So yes, thank you for asking about that. But if for those of you joining us, thank you so much for tuning in to the Random Redshirt podcast. We very much appreciate it, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or you're watching us on YouTube. We definitely appreciate that. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe or follow button, whichever button you have on your preferred method of listening or watching us. And then also check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and make sure you follow us there to get all the latest updates and announcements, celebrity guest announcements, and other funny things we post from time to time. A lot of fun there. But yeah, we are back. Since last week, we watched DS9's crossover as we continue our look of our Spotlight series. This is episode number 3, Chris, of our Spotlight series. And this Spotlight series that we have started is meant to be, if those of you who may or may not know, is meant to be a deep dive series where we deep dive into specific episodes or themes of episodes, that type of thing. And so Chris, this is a wonderful idea you come up with. Said, hey, we do the Spotlight series. Let's go through the Mirror Universe episodes first. Let's start with those. And people love the Mirror episodes. They're a lot of fun. And I definitely agree with that. It's been really fun so far. Now we're diving into another DS9 Mirror episode called Through the Looking Glass.
Yes, indeed, Through the Looking Glass. And yes, it has been so much fun because, like I said, our last recording, we both hadn't looked at DS9 in a little while. So now going back into DS9, it was really nice jumping into it. And then you'd have this sub-series in there of the Mirror Universe and DS9. So it was so cool to kind of get refreshed and reminded, and right back into that sub-series, and then see the nuances that are there for each of the characters, right? Because when I was going through it on my watch through of DS9, it was sequential episode by episode. But now I have, when I go back to the Mirror Universe episode, this sense of like appreciation. Oh, there's a deeper appreciation of each of the characters. So I go back and I appreciate it more, and I can see these kind of nuances that each of the characters kind of brings to it. So I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really easy when you're watching either just random episodes, you're watching through a series, to just kind of maybe gloss over a little bit because you're going through so many episodes, right? Especially these legacy shows where they have multiple seasons of 20 some episodes. But really getting a chance to spotlight kind of like our series, right? Or focus on a particular episode or series of episodes like what we're doing now with the Mirror Universe really kind of helps us dig down into that deep dive that we love to do so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a lot of fun. I really like that in DS9 that, they took the opportunity to flesh out the Mirror Universe like even more.
Yeah.
Which is great, right? It was brilliant that they did that.
Yeah, they built off of literally a single toss episode, right? They took the foundation that was built there by that one toss episode, Mirror, which we have also, that was our first Spotlight episode in the Mirror Universe. So be sure to go check that out on anywhere you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel. It's there to listen and watch. But they took that one particular episode and they've now run with it. And I think you hit it right on the head there, Chris, that DS9 took that and has begun to flush out this Mirror Universe. We're getting new characters. In this particular episode, Through the Looking Glass, we're now meeting some additional characters that we know very well from the Prime Universe that we have not met their mirror counterparts yet until this episode.
Right. Indeed. And we got, this episode had some twists. So that was it was really neat to see in there.
Yeah, it really did. And speaking of that, I just really want to, if you don't mind for a second,
Chris, please.
I want to take this book here. So for those of you listening, I'll kind of describe it. So this is a really dear friend of mine, Joe Suttles, who I've known since, my goodness, I think 5th grade or something like that. I mean, a long time. One of my best friend from high school. And he sent this to me for my birthday / Christmas because I guess it got delayed and came out after my birthday or something. So shout out to him. Really appreciate that, buddy. But this book is, I think they've done a Kirk one and a Picard one, and he knows my affinity for DS9.
Yeah.
He listens to and watches our show here on the podcast. So thank you so much. But this is the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko. It says the life of Starfleet's legendary captain and emissary. It's got a red cover with the DS9, the later season DS9 comm badge and the station in the background. The way this book is formatted, it's written as if the character himself, Benjamin Sisko, wrote this. Although it's actually written, it says edited by, but it's written by Derek Tyler Attico. That's the author. And of course, you look in the back, it shows the author as being Captain Sisko. But it's a really neat concept, right? It's written from Sisko's perspective on his life and being this captain, right, who leads the Federation through the Dominion War and being the emissary. It's just a really neat concept. I have to go back and look and see if there really is a Picard in Kirk one. I'm pretty sure there's a Picard one at least. So yeah, again, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate that. And good timing, seeing how this episode Through the Looking Glass is all about really Sisko. That's kind of focused on him and his first crossover into the Mirror Universe.
Oh man, outstanding. Excellent timing. Oh, that's got to be, please update me as you read that, your impressions and what you think about that. And if it's fitting what what your perception of Sisko is. That'll be fast.
Yeah, I definitely will. And with as fast as I read stuff, Chris, you might hear an update in 2032.
Yeah, that's all good.
You'll be ready.
I'll be ready.
You'll be waiting in anticipation. Yeah. So, all right, let's jump into this. Let's get started and work our way through the Looking Glass, I guess, or work our way through the Looking Glass, Deep Space Nine's second Mirror Universe episode and the third Mirror Universe episode of the franchise thus far. So we start out where we get Sisko, Odo, and Quark. They're in Sisko's office, right? We know the famous office of his with the desk and the baseball on it, and they're debating about Cardassian voles, which Sisko basically he tells Quark, like, yeah, they're used for fighting, and Quark is trying to deny that. There's no way, these are Morn's pets and so forth. And they found a whole bunch of them. I mean, 27 of them. The Cardassian voles are basically like, I don't know, they'd be like the equivalent of like, not quite rats. They're bigger than rats, but they're smaller than opossums. They're like a rat opossum combination or something.
I found it hilarious that like the vole would be, I guess it's essentially the DS9 equivalent of the gambling and the chicken fighting. That's what I got out of it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, that's exactly it. Yeah. It's cockfighting. Yeah.
Yeah. And a couple things came to my mind here. And I'm not trying to, the chicken and the cockfighting is a terrible thing to have that the animals do that to each other.
Right. Yeah.
A friend of mine, Terry, had sent me this article about some chicken fighting that was happening in one of the Asian countries. And the article was about like the chickens revolted, and then they instead of injuring each other, they injured the owners. So I thought that was funny. So that came to my mind. And then the voles was hilarious because some years ago, back in and this is nothing related to do with DS9, but when I heard voles, some years ago there was a facility, an office building that I got information on, and they said, oh, there's a whole bunch of voles in this building. Oh, there's a vole infestation in this building. So then I was like, DS9, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm at work. There's a vole. Well,
what do they mean by voles? What were they? Because voles aren't a real thing in our world. So what do they mean by?
Yeah, that was the question. Because someone questioned whoever said the vole infestation. They said, well, what is a vole?
Oh, maybe they were Star Trek fans, and they were making a reference to Star Trek at the time or something.
I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was some sort of mouse. Like some sort of mouse. Like
well, maybe that's what it was. They were making a play off of that, off of voles from DS9, because I'm pretty sure voles were introduced in DS9, and I don't think they're really a thing in any other series. So
I want to say they're a mouse. We'll look it up. Someone in the comments.
Well, they're like a rat meets an opossum. Like they're too big to be a rat. I guess, unless they're like, New York subway rats or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But they're too big to be a rat, but I think they're a little too small to be an opossum. Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of a combo basically. If you see them, they're ugly looking things. There's like one or two times I think we actually see them on screen, and of course they're dead. They look like rubber. They look like rubber rats or something on the screen. But
okay,
yeah. There's a couple times that they're shown like in dead or whatever. But anyways, So we get this kind of this accusation that they've been used for fighting, and so Sisko basically tells Odo, hey, confiscate those, and I love what Quark suggests that they're Morn's pets, and he's gonna be upset or whatever, and he says, well, if Morn wants new pets, get him some goldfish.
Yeah.
And so Quark says, poor Morn, this is gonna break his hearts. Yeah, so we learned that Morn has multiple hearts. I mean, we don't really know a whole lot about Morn. It's very vague on a lot of things about him, although he's referenced a lot throughout the series because he's the most, he's the most consistent patron of Quark's bar, right? He's got his own seat. He's there all the time and everything. But anyway, so then Sisko walks out into Ops, and some random person, he's like, yeah, Ops is yours or whatever. And then as he starts walking towards the turbo lift, we see the chief come in. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
he's off duty. If you've never seen this episode before, you're thinking, oh, it's the chief. He's off duty, and he comes up to Sisko, and all of a sudden he points a phaser at him and says, get to the
The transporter pad. Yeah.
transporter. Yeah,
Yeah.
get the transporter pad.
Yeah.
And then he heads over, and Sisko tells him to kind of basically stand down, the crew to stand down. And once he gets on the transporter pad, this is where, there's some device that we don't know about at this moment, right?
Yeah.
Exactly what it is, that he uses to kind of wave over the computer, and then they transport away. But right before they transport away, Sisko's like, ask where they're going. And this is where O'Brien says, I guess you could say we just stepped through the looking glass, which of course is the reference of the episode. And then that's where we go into the opening segment, and then we jump into it.
And I like that he uses that phrase, you've stepped through the looking glass. It's a reference to the episode title and a reference to what Major Curious says at the end of the crossover episode, right?
Yes.
They're using the exact same phrase. So I like that idea of continuity of that theme, and that the writers put it in, and then that's just, it makes everything connected. And maybe some people mind it, but I really liked it. I just really liked that. Hey, we're connecting this theme all the way through.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, this is a testament, as we've said before, and I'm sure I've said so many times you're sick of it, but it's a testament to DS9's continuity, right?
Mm-hmm.
The writers' room, Ira Stephen Bear, and their ability to continue this long story, even with individual episodes. I mean, these two episodes were not back to back. Crossover and Through the Looking Glass are not back to back. Crossover, I want to say, was in season 2, and then this episode's season 3. So they're not back to back. So the fact that they go back and reference, that previous episode, and then this episode sets up this one, I think is pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that takes a lot of creative skill, right? To connect that together. So really, appreciate that from the writers and the creators. And hopefully they hear that from us if they're listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I hope one day we have Ira Stephen Bear on with us, because that'd be like a dream for me, being able to talk to Ira and the showrunner, and talk to him about DS9 and his writing career. He's a incredibly talented writer. I want to say he got his start on TNG. And so it would be awesome to have him on one time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'll see. We're working on some stuff. So anyways, yeah. So then it goes to the opening credits, and the DS9 theme song, and then it comes back, and we've got O'Brien and Sisko, who have now beamed on to another ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And shortly after, I think Sisko is able to wrestle the phaser away from O'Brien, right? It didn't take too much effort on the part of Sisko, but that's the testament to like Sisko being like this great fighter. And O'Brien says something like, "Well, I guess you have like a whole bunch of questions, right?" And then Sisko says, "Actually, less than you think," because Sisko's right now, he's realized he's in the mirror universe, and O'Brien confirms it, and so they have a conversation, and O'Brien's kind of saying, "Hey, we're in this middle of this Terran rebellion, and our Captain Sisko is helping to lead it, but now our Captain Sisko's dead, and now we need you, to help us get through." And Captain Sisko, I think he's our captain, the Prime Universe Captain Sisko. I think he comes into it with a good an attitude, I guess is the right, or a good viewpoint. He's like, "Hey, no, good luck, guys, but I can't get involved. I'm not supposed to be involved. This is kind of your thing. Good luck. I kind of know my own place, and if I get like involved too much, I'm just going to change way too many things on this side of the mirror universe."
Yeah, and he even references that he had 2 officers that had just he says a year ago, came to the mirror universe. So we know that there's been about a year between crossover and Through the Looking Glass. So we get a little bit of a time reference here, which kind of makes sense. I mean, if you look at DS9, it had 7 seasons, excuse me. So you're thinking about a year-ish, maybe a little more for each season, over the course of the show. Interesting. I don't know if you thought this, Chris, but when you mentioned that Sisko disarms O'Brien, or now in this case would be maybe Smiley for as he's better known. It kind of makes me think Prime Universe O'Brien should be a pretty good fighter, right? I mean, he was at the Battle of Setlik 3. He fought the Cardies, as he calls them, the Cardassians. He's been to war. He's fought before. Smiley hasn't. Remember, Smiley is a Terran. He was put to work on Terok Nor and tinkering and fixing things around the station. He was not a fighter. Did you have that any thought about that? As so like, hey, okay, here's the difference between Smiley and the Prime O'Brien. The Smiley doesn't have the battle field experience and the fighting experience that Prime O'Brien has.
A little bit, but you're absolutely right, because Smiley, in the Mirror Universe O'Brien, he had a very difficult life. He didn't have the training, right? He didn't have all the Starfleet training. He wasn't involved in a theater of war. He's not going to have those skills, right? So he may have the same kind of deep down essence of his character and traits, but not those combat skills that our Miles O'Brien is certainly going to have. So yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of what I was thinking of when that happened quickly. I was like, oh, well, that happened quickly. I mean, Smiley doesn't have the same level of expertise in fighting that the Chief has. Now, that doesn't mean that in the Prime universe, the Chief didn't get beat up, because we all know the whole running gag with O'Brien was getting put to the ringer, right? So he had his fair share, but O'Brien wasn't somebody who was going to back down from a fight either.
Yeah.
Whereas Smiley seemed like it's like, yeah, that was a little. I mean, Sisko's got some fighting skills, but that was a little too easy. So that's, I think a distinct difference between Prime Universe and Mirror Universe O'Brien.
Yeah, that's a great point you've got, Zach. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Sisko's pretty much, he's demanding to say, hey, take me back to my universe. And then there's a conversation between Smiley and Sisko, where Smiley is saying, well, again, we're in the middle of this rebellion. This is life or death, and we need you because there's the scientist that's working for the Alliance, and you're the only one that can help in this situation and get this scientist, because she's developing, I guess, this sensor essentially that can detect where they are in the Badlands and like find them. And since they're hiding in the Badlands, it's really important that they don't get discovered and found. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. So we discover like who this scientist is, and it's Jennifer Sisko. And when we see that, when Sisko sees it, he's like, oh, who's this? And Smiley's like, well, this is our Captain Sisko's wife. And our Captain Sisko's like, oh, well, she was my wife in my universe too. Like, only she's dead in my universe. And
I mean, think about that, Chris. I want to put myself in Sisko's shoes for a minute. Okay. So I'm married. I have a kid with this woman. Jake was obviously younger than he was when he showed up on DS9, right?
Yeah.
But he still had a kid with her. Is his wife. He loves her deeply, and his ship is called to fight in the Battle of Wolf 359 against Locutus's Borg cube and the Borg, and the ship's badly damaged. She dies in the attack, and he has to leave her body behind get out of there with Jake. And she dies in that fight. And of course, we all know his blaming of Picard for the ordeal, right? Yeah. But I put myself in Sisko's shoes when I was watching this, and I don't know what your thought was on this, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I get thrown into a mirror universe, an alternate universe, and my deceased wife of about 5 years ago is now all of a sudden alive. I know she's not my wife, but she's the same person, technically, physically anyways, as my wife. In the mirror universe, I'm still married. I'm also married to her. And I think, what would I do? How would I respond to that, knowing that the mission in this case is to go basically stop my wife from making this device that is kind of a betrayal to her own people, because she's a Terran as well, and get her out of there? And what if she says no? What if she fights me on it? Like there's so many thoughts that was going through my head when I watched this episode. If I was in Sisko's shoes, I don't know what you thought, at this, if you had put yourself in Sisko's shoes at the moment he learns his wife is the reason why Smiley has brought him over.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, the moment he learned that, there was only one path that he could conceivably do, that he would think he would do. He'd be like, okay, no matter what universe, right? Then he would feel like she's my wife. Well, she was his wife in both universes, but no matter what universe he's in, he's going to feel compelled to save her,
Yeah.
stop her, talk to her, connect with her, whatever it takes, right? So, um, I thought, yeah, once he saw that, there was only one path he probably had in his mind to do, and
Yeah.
how
I also thought,
surreal, yeah,
yeah, no, go ahead.
yeah, how surreal that would have felt, um, for him, to kind of now have that circumstance.
Yeah. I also thought to myself, I don't know if you had this thought either, or it was just me. I also thought, what if scientists today in reality are correct? And there are some scientists who theorize that there is an infinite number of alternate realities or alternate universes, right? That every time you make a decision, it splits off, right? We might have talked about this very briefly on the last episode we discussed, or maybe it was in the first Mirror episode we reviewed. And I think to myself, if that were true, I don't necessarily agree with that, but let's say it were true. How many of those alternate universes am I married to my real wife?
Mm-hmm.
Like how many of those alternate universes did I make the same choice?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how many of those alternate universes did I marry my wife and now she's not alive? Right? There's so many of these different things running through my head just in this scene alone when Sisko sees that it's his wife, albeit not the one from his universe. And I don't know if you had any of those thoughts yourself personally, but I definitely had some things pop in my head when it came to that.
Yeah, that's really interesting to do a whole bunch of thought experiments with,
Yeah.
right? Just to see how it would be. Yeah, often we think, how different could the path that we would be on be, like if there were certain different choices or certain different actions that happened in our life. So it's really, really, really fascinating.
Yeah, because I thought about that, and I'm like, the way my wife and I met, it was so. I mean, I think everything happens for a reason, but I mean, it was so like there was no possible way to predict it, or the chance of the matter was so infinitesimal that it's like I think to myself, in many different alternate universes, there's so many paths that I think would lead to never even having met her,
Mm-hmm.
that things would be vastly different. And then I'm like, okay, but what if in those other universes, the path still led there? Would I still make the same choice
Mm-hmm.
to, date her and then marry her and everything like that? And I like to think to myself, yes, I would, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And we're going to talk about this because later on, as we work our way through the episode, and we've talked about this earlier on the phone about how kind of making this episode a little bit of a Sisko case study, because the focus is mostly around him. And I kind of thought that through after we talked. I was like, okay, well, what choices would I make? Would I still make the same choices? And those other versions of me, would they still make the same choices because they have a different path in their life to that moment or moments? And so it really just got my brain kind of, I don't want to say scrambled, but just kind of lost in the thoughts of those things, stuff that could kind of make you go mad a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the well, not only this episode through the looking glass, but the episode tapestry with Q and Picard kind of
Oh yeah.
explores those types of things. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Him getting stabbed through the heart by the Nausicaan, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Sort of cool. Very, very cool to think about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, Cisco kind of accepts the mission now, right? And then they go to their rebellion, I guess, hideout, like spot, for lack of a better word. Like that's
Yeah,
where
in the
they are
Badlands.
in the Badlands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get to see the alternate versions of Bashir, which was pretty neat, an alternate version of Dax, which was pretty neat. But they introduce Captain Sisko back, saying, "Well, here's our captain," and everyone's surprised, going, "Oh, they thought he had died," and so they're rejoicing like he's there. And it's amazing how, for me, it's amazing how easily Captain Sisko slips into being able to pretend like he's the mirror universe Captain Sisko.
Yeah. Yeah. Really quickly, Chris, before we continue, I want to jump back really briefly because I was thinking through this. You know, when O'Brien explains to Sisko that if they don't go get Jennifer from Terok Nor, then the rebels, which is part of the group Smiley's a part of, right? These rebels that are defying and going against this Klingon Cardassian alliance.
Yeah,
they're going to have no choice but to kill her because they can't allow her to create this technology, this sensor or whatever that gives them away. And so if you think about it, it kind of leaves Sisko with no choice. I mean, he's already lost her once. Does he really want her to die in this mirror universe? Obviously, the answer is no, because he agrees to it. But I found that fascinating. That's that more of that intertwined concept of these realities, right? Where it's not his wife. His wife is dead, but it's almost like the idea of her, because there is this other version of her living. And so going, like you talked about, going to this headquarters and having to put on a show in order to be accepted as their Sisko, in order to make this whole mission happen, you know, he knows he has to, right? He knows he has to bluff his way through it, because if not, they're going to kill, in theory, his wife. And so I found that fascinating, that idea that he doesn't want another version of Jennifer to die, like his Jennifer, becomes the driving force to what he's now doing, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wanted to point that out, because I think that was kind of an important line where Smiley says they're going to have no choice but to kill her if, you know, they don't go and get her and keep her from making the device.
Yeah, that was really important. You made me. There's another thing that I just thought of as you brought this up, because Smiley and O'Brien, right? As far as we know, it is Smiley's idea to go get the Prime Universe Sisko.
Yes.
I don't know if it's anyone else's idea.
No, I think you're right. I think it's Smiley's, and that's a testament to his character, right? He'd rather go get Sisko to go help to get her out rather than say, "Oh, we're just going to kill her because she's going to give us away."
Yeah, because they could have just gone and done an assassination.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. So I thought that was super. I mean, I don't know if that was the intent of the writers, but that just is a testament to like Smiley and O'Brien's character. He's just a very decent man. And he's like, hey, you know, we don't want this to happen. Like, she's a Terran, and let's get someone that can, you know, help pull her out.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I thought, so when they get to the headquarters and their hideout, and they're seeing all of the people, we've got this really different version of Bashir, which is kind of funny. Bashir's maybe funny is not the right word, but Bashir is a very different personality.
Yeah, right? He's very rough around the edges.
Very rough. And there's definitely some conflict going on when Captain Sisko comes in, and Bashir's, you know, still giving attitude, and Smiley's like, all right, you'd hit him, you know, you'd hit him. That's what our Captain Sisko would do. And Sisko's able to go right into that mode and immediately like hits him hard. And I was like, that's where I was like, yeah, he goes right into he taps into this other kind of version of himself really easily, and is able to do that and convince everyone else that, yeah, I'm their Captain Sisko. And that's how it is. So that was good. That was good. And we see Dax come in too. I think right there, and you find out like a twist between Dax's and Sisko's relationship in this mirror universe, isn't there? Yeah.
it's not quite a mentor relationship. It's more of a physical liaison, romantic kind of relationship, right? Like she's kind of the mistress because he is still technically married, right? As far as we know.
Yeah. So a romance there.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I did not expect like at all, right? And so, and then they continue the romance, and it's kind of interesting because, yeah, Sisko's really, he's trying to go like, hey, you know, we got work to do. You know, we got to do some planning and stuff. And Dax is like, well, I think that can wait. And Sisko's like, well, I guess I can wait. So
I think most guys in that situation with Dax would be like, yeah, I can wait.
Yeah.
It can wait. It's interesting too, because, you know, there was a scene, I think, right before this where they flash over to Terok Nor, and Jennifer Sisko comes in to see the intendant, and she's like, oh yeah, your husband's been killed. And she doesn't really seem to care. And I think that's an important setup to note, because it's evident that scene tells you that Jennifer and the mirror universe version of Sisko clearly didn't have a very good relationship.
Yeah.
Their relationship obviously wasn't close. It's not like they were, you know, really, you know, soulmate kind of forever love lasting kind of thing. They clearly had some issues. The fact that she's like, you know, kind of, oh, whatever. That doesn't really seem to care that much.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the back.
Yeah, and that's going to set up a scene later on. Yeah, between the two of them.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah.
So on Terok Nor, and that now that we're on Terok Nor, there's like some you realize things are not operating as smoothly on Terok Nor now that Odo is not there.
I was gonna say, I wonder why that was. maybe because Bashir shot him and blew him up, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, things are not as efficient in the ore processing for sure.
No.
And the intendant is very mad about that. Garrick, you know, doesn't have the same skills Odo does.
not in this universe, anyways. No.
Yeah. So I did like that, and the intendant kind of going, well, okay, well, let's find some people at random to execute them. That'll make sure they're more aware and more efficient. And Garrick's like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, Garrick is all on board. We saw this in crossover. Now we're seeing it in Through the Looking Glass. Garrick could just as soon assassinate all of them. I mean, he knows that, you know, they need the slave labor, right, to work the ore processing, but he can't stand the Terrans. We know for a fact he's looking for any excuse possible to execute somebody.
Yeah.
So any chance he gets, he's all on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I forget how Sisko ends up getting on the station again, but he does get on the station like shortly after again. So you can refresh my memory on that. Like, how does he get on?
I think I'm pretty sure that the ship docks to the station.
Just docks.
Remember, they try to get back to an airlock. They're trying to get back to an airlock, and they get there. They get to the airlock where the ship's supposed to be, and then you see we'll talk about it in a minute, but you see somebody dead hanging, you know, stabbed onto the airlock door, and that was supposed to be the ship. So I'm pretty sure they just docked to the ship.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So his reunion with Sisko's reunion with the intendant, again, you know, the intendant's kind of I would say Sisko does a good job of maneuvering his way back into the intendant's almost good graces, right? Because she's like, well, we should have him executed, and he's able to like convince her, well, no, let's not execute me like yet. So
well, we know the intendant has a soft spot for Sisko, right? It's almost like he's kind of like a little love toy for her or something, which there are a lot of people that seem to play that role for her.
Yeah.
But you're right, Chris. She definitely favors him for some reason that the others don't understand why.
Yeah. And he's able to, his personality is very, his personality is different than everybody's. like
Yeah,
Sisko's personality, right? It especially in the mirror universe, it has this edge and it has this unpredictability.
Mhm.
I would
I
say,
like that.
yeah.
Yes, I like that.
Yes. And I'll talk.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a podcast first. The Chris's Yoda has shown up.
Yes, yes.
That was epic.
And I'll talk about like who Sisko reminded me of, because it came to me like either last night or today, but he reminds me of another character in science fiction, not in Star Trek, but yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, he's able to kind of get in with the intendant and convince her not to execute him just yet, but through that, right, he's able to maneuver his way to connect with Jennifer and have some conversations with Jennifer then. And this is all to Garrick's like dismay. Garrick's like, come on, man, like what's going on? Like with this.
Yeah, well, Cisco's done a great job of convincing people. He convinces the intendant not to kill him.
Yeah.
He also convinces the group, the rebel. Good thing I can talk, right? The rebel group to go get Jennifer and not just have her killed, right? That she's the objective, not assassinating or executing her. So he's very good. He's very good at fitting into this role, this idea of manipulation, this idea of motivation and manipulation.
Mhm.
To me are
Yeah.
two qualities that mirror universe Sisko has. Now we'll talk about this later, but we also will learn later on in the series that perhaps Prime Universe Sisko also has some manipulating abilities. And we also know he's motivating because he motivates his crew pretty well to get the mission done. But I found that to be a fascinating thing there. Those two traits that we see him needing to nail spot on to be successful over here in the mirror universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And we learn more about him in the conversation that he has with Jennifer, for sure, right? That learn a lot about Sisko and in that one. Yeah, should we get into that? That was like fascinating. We can get in his conversation with Jennifer now.
Well, let's really quickly,
Yeah.
as we're leading up to this, when he leaves the airlock on the station after arriving, he kisses the intendant, which I found that fascinating as well. That he's trying to, it's that manipulation piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that idea of trying to kind of get her back around his finger a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in order to, basically make amends and be able to motivate her to not kill him. But yeah, I mean, the intendant, Kira, is not happy that O'Brien has betrayed the Alliance, right? Because he sort of kind of worked for him, right? Tinkering around the station.
Yeah.
And, the idea that he did it because he wanted to be free. And Kira's like, maybe we should send him back to ore processing or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of cat and mouse going on in this game, in this episode. We saw that to begin in the crossover, and then we saw that leading up to that in that scene, that exchange between the intendant and Sisko. Of course, Garrick just wants to get rid of him. He wants to execute. And honestly, if the intendant were smart, she'd have just listened to Garrick, because if she just executed Sisko, none of this would happen. Right? Everything from this episode moving forward wouldn't happen because Sisko would be gone.
And that's part of the intendant's weakness, right?
Yes.
So
she has a weakness for the Terrans. We know that.
Yeah, she has a weakness for the Terrans, and so she is ruthless in a way, but she has this weakness for pleasure, right? And recreation, I would say.
Yes.
Like she indulges in that, and you kind of you see her indulge in pampering herself. I mean, she wears like a tiara and whereas um, her outfits are certainly very different than Major Cure's outfits. And yeah, I would say her, when you look at the Intendant and you look at Major Cure is always working really, really hard, right? She's a work, yeah, and she works all the time. When she's not working, she's meditating or praying.
Yeah.
And she's got a very serious demeanor, very serious attitude, just because like her having to come up with the war with the Cardassians. But
Well, yeah, and we
yeah,
know that she, in one episode in particular, I can think of, I don't remember the name of it, where Dr. Bashir has to order her to take time off because she's been working how many days without a break, and
yeah,
I think Sisko was maybe off station at this point. I don't remember specifically, but she's a workaholic. She's a very much a workaholic because I think she realizes how much work has to be done to get Bajor out of the ashes of the Cardassian occupation, to get Bajor potentially into the Federation, to get the station being this hub for Bajor. I mean, there's a lot of things you can see, and she's the first officer. She's the second in command on board the station, so she has a lot of weight on her shoulders from the Bajoran perspective. So you're spot on there. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And the Intendant is just, she wants to play, she wants to indulge like in pleasure. And she's, she runs the station, but that's kind of her, what she wants to do. So those are part
Mm-hmm.
of her motivations. So I
But the
like that.
difference, though, Chris, is
Uh,
she rules like a dictator, right?
yeah.
She's not a commander. She's not a somebody leading people. She's a dictator, and she has minions that do her work. Alternate, mirror universe Cisco, before he was killed, he was one of her minions that went out and did her deeds, right? We learned that in the last crossover. Uh, Garrick is one of her minions. Odo, one of her minions.
Mhm.
The Klingons, minions. Like there's all these little minions that run around and do her will and do her deed. She's a dictator, so who cares? She didn't have to do anything. She have to work hard. She just, like you said, loves taking pleasure in things and
Mhm.
having and being leisurely about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting on that take.
Yeah.
I think they did a good
But
job with that.
that does kind of bring us to this exchange that you wanted to discuss between
Yeah.
Cisco and Jennifer. And I think this is a very important scene in this episode.
Yeah. And this is their first kind of interaction right now with Cisco and Jennifer, and you understand that they haven't seen each other for 5 years. Cisco is learning about our Prime Cisco is really learning about the mirror universe version of Cisco in this relationship, right? So
Yeah.
because Jennifer's saying all of these terrible things, and Cisco's questioning, "Hey, was it that bad?" And she's like, "Well, like yes, you went out of your way to impress all of these women. You loved your ship more than you loved us. You wanted to fight. This is what you did." Um, and the reaction on Cisco's like face was just kind of taking, to me, it was just kind of taking in the information, learning about the mirror universe version of Cisco, but also I felt learning about himself in that situation, right? Because he slips in so easily into this alternate version of himself when he's in the mirror universe, that I thought this was a very eye-opening thing for him to say, "Oh, I could you know, slip in here so easily." Because he questions Jennifer when she says something about impressing all of these other women, and he says, "Were there that many?" Like something to that effect. She was like, "Oh, there was enough." And she questions him like, "Yeah, why were you getting tribute for the Intendant?" And he goes, "That's a very good question." He doesn't answer it, but he says something like, "That's a very good question." So he's just kind of taking that in, learning about both versions of himself, I think, right here. Um, and I like that about this episode a lot.
Yeah, it's this idea of, and we talked about this earlier on the phone, where if you were to go to an alternate universe, right, or mirror universe, and you were to learn about a different version of yourself, good, bad, or indifferent, a different version, and you learn that the different version of yourself is not a lot like who you are, very different in many ways, right? And you have to decide, what do I think of that version of me? You know, what does that version of me communicate? There's so many things that you could unpack here, like we discussed, right? Like
Yeah.
what would, I kind of wrote down some questions that I would ask myself, like what would we think of ourselves if we saw an alternate version of us? What would that alternate version look like? Would the alternate version be a terrible human? Would they be evil? Would they be there's so many things that you could think about yourself, right? You think, okay, well, in this situation, I know I would make this choice, but would a different version of me who maybe has had a different life because they've made different choices, would they make the same decision that I would make in this particular instance? In this scene, like as you eloquently put it, Chris, Sisko is taking things in, right? He's learning about this other version of himself. And I think you can kind of see it on his face. Maybe you didn't catch this. I don't know if you did. What I took away from his facial expressions were that he wasn't really liking what he heard.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, his face, he wasn't excited to hear about it. He was like, oh, you know, he wouldn't take fault for anything because obviously he didn't do it. And he wouldn't answer questions because he didn't want to say something that may be contrary to what she thought he was, because right now she doesn't know that he's a different version. But I found it interesting the way in which he responded, you know, with his face, right? The body language, the posturing of him as he found out these details. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's
Yeah.
something that really caught my attention.
Yeah, it did catch my attention too on him processing that, and him coming to understanding of that. So these were like these kind of dark or negative I'll use the term like dark or negative qualities in Sisko right now, because he was trying to impress all the women that came across in the past, at least the mirror universe, about the mirror universe Sisko, right? And he was manipulative. He was like hurting the Terrans in a very, very bad way. This, you know, the prime universe Sisko, I think this is where he starts understanding about himself that, yeah, these are still within him. These are qualities that he has, but they're not brought to the front, right? They're controlled by they're controlled by the more light and positive part of himself, right? These are
The
kind of
morals and the values of himself. Yeah.
right. It's kind of controlled. But then he's like understanding, oh, it's here. You know, this is part of me, you know, and um this is a version of me that could have easily like have happened. So
Yeah.
that's what I took from it, and I thought, you know, this was really, really powerful, and Avery Brooks, I feel, did a really good job doing that.
Yeah, I would agree. I also looked at this as well, from the sense that, okay, I see a different version of myself and I look and say, am I capable of doing and saying the same things that this one is? Right? Because this is me, but it has different life experiences. It has a different, how it got to this point is different than how I got to the same point, because I lived a different life in theory. So does that mean that deep within me, I'm capable of the same things that this version of me is capable of? Or am I not, because I don't have the same life experiences that this other version had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that kind of tears me a little bit, because I'd like to think that the other versions of me, if there were those out there, would have similar values and morals and things that I feel like I have here. But then again, if you live a different life and you're raised differently, or you have different experiences, you have different traumas and stuff, how differently does that change? Like at the core, at the soul of your being, are you capable of those things? I guess that's kind of that good versus evil. This idea that everybody who walks this planet is capable of evil.
Yeah.
You may not think you are, but depending on life experiences and events that may happen to you and traumas that may happen, could easily trigger those things down inside that maybe wouldn't ordinarily come out. And I think this is kind of what we're seeing, that Sisko is seeing in a different version of himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. So Sisko is realizing, so the mirror version of Sisko, we understand that the mirror version of Sisko did manipulative things. He hurt the Terrans. He caused a lot of people to die. There's a lot of bad that he did in that universe.
Yep.
Sisko, the prime universe of Sisko is understanding that, and I think also understanding, oh, these traits are within me too. And I'm gonna connect this to another episode, like we talked about, like earlier, right? We connect this to another episode where okay, in the Pale Moonlight, the prime universe Sisko, he's reflecting on some decisions he made that they were able to bring the Romulans into the war and turn the tide of the Dominion War where it needed to go in order to save save the quadrant.
Yeah.
But that decision and kind of the intrinsic dilemma of that decision was it was not an ethical decision if you look at that just on the whole of the decision right there, right? So the decision itself, not the consequences, the positive consequences after it was that particular decision. But that's kind of a trait that Sisko has, right? He's like, okay, I'm gonna make, whether it was the prime universe Sisko or the mirror universe Sisko, he's capable of thinking that way, of kind of making a decision that way and doing an action that way to manipulate the circumstances. And so I thought, all right, that fits, right? So prime universe Sisko's understanding this about himself, and he's taking that knowledge, and then it's being applied like in the future too, in some of his future decisions. So I contrast that with Picard, and I'm just like, oh, Picard's just not like, Picard's not like that. I don't think he just is not like that. So, but this is what I like about Sisko, kind of seeing that in both versions of himself right there.
Yeah. I actually kind of want to tie this back a little bit, Chris. The Siege of AR 558, an amazing episode, very kind of pretty dark episode. And this is the episode where Nog loses his leg in battle, right, against the Jem'Hadar, and begins to experience, what he will learn to be is a PTSD, right? And you think about it, okay? So Nog goes to battle and fights the Jem'Hadar, and the trauma of losing his leg and the trauma of the war. I bet you, if at the beginning of the series, that young kid who was hanging out in the promenade with Jake, causing trouble, and that little Ferengi boy probably wouldn't have thought he was capable of doing the things he did after being in Starfleet, after fighting in the Dominion War. Because the things that he experienced and went through changed him. Right. So I think back and I go, okay, so what types of things would I have had to have gone through? What types of traumas or decisions, poor decisions, would I would have had to have made to make me be like fill in the blank, right? To make me become a certain way, or me change my personality in a way. Like, obviously, the person I am today is not the person I was 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. So what things have happened that have changed me because of that? And I then think, in an alternate universe, those decisions that would have been made differently in the past, how would those have changed me, and what would I look like in an alternate version of myself? The same kind of maybe internal struggle or internal discussions that Sisko is having in his head as he's learning about himself and is seeing with Jennifer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, but maybe some of those thoughts and some of those ideas are running through his mind as he learns about this other version of himself, because he didn't meet the other version, right? Bashir and Kira met the other Sisko. He did not. So he did not get to see firsthand. He now has to go off of what Jennifer's told him and what Smiley has told him and other people are telling him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Jennifer's seen like the worst of him. And, you know, she's kind of seeing, I think she expresses to him that, yeah, I hate you. I don't want anything to do with you. But he's able to still connect with her, like, in a way. He's just he's like thinking, hey, I think, right?
I think this idea, Chris, that you know, they're married in the Prime universe, they're married in this universe, so there's something that crosses the bounds of the universe, right? This connection that no matter what mirror universe they're in, they still have this connection, right? Like these two people have this connection regardless. It spans across the universe in time and space.
Yeah, that's
what some people like to think, for sure.
No, indeed, that is that's a beautiful concept. Yeah. But I do like how he connects with her and kind of convinces her in a way, because he says, we've been at each other for so long, we're not just, you know, we're used to being on the opposite sides. Because he questions her. He's saying, why are you doing this for the Alliance? Because, you know, you're hurting your people, you're hurting the Terrans. Like, why? You know, this is a cogent and it's a logical argument saying, you know, look at what your actions are doing. You're hurting like humanity. And then he connects it like really like, you know, why I think this is happening is we're so used to being on the opposite sides. And so you need to be on the opposite side to like fight me. And you're used to that. And so, but he kind of appeals to her and pleads with her. Let's, you know, stop that. Let's try and get out of here. I've come to rescue you. And you know, I think that was the argument that kind of convinces her, you know, the logic that kind of convinces her, oh, okay, I'll give this a chance.
Yeah. It's a wonderful scene. I think it's a very important scene this episode, because this is where things turn, right? There's a subdermal communicator that Sisko has. He's able to communicate to Smiley, and he's able to disable the guards outside of the quarters, and gets him and Jennifer out of that room in order to try to get off the station. Right. And I think I even remember him saying something to the effect of like, are you coming or not, or whatever? Have you made a decision? And then she finally agrees to go with him, because she realizes after their conversation that, well, maybe I misjudged him. Maybe I don't know him the way I thought I did, or we've been apart for so long that maybe something about him has changed a little bit, because she doesn't know he's from the other universe, the other Prime universe yet, or our Prime universe. And so I think that scene is really critical to the movement forward in the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I do. And I like how that evolves in her perception and her thoughts towards Sisko, because like she's, you know, she doesn't trust him at first. But he kind of gets in that wedge to convince her to say, okay, she's going to follow him for now. But as they're running through the station, I like those kind of small intimate moments where he's saying, you know, I'm not going to leave you. You know, we didn't come this far to just give up and leave. And the way she looks at him and goes, okay, I believe you. You know, her trust starts to grow and grow and grow. And you see, like, she's looking at him intently. And, you know, realizing that this is Sisko, but it's not like Sisko like he was, like not the Sisko that she knows, right? She goes, something's changed. Something's changed. Something's different. So
I like as he asks if she's coming or not, and then she says, well, you know, something about this, nothing, this doesn't change the fact that I still hate you or whatever. Like, but she kind of says it with like a little bit of a smirk, you know, and obviously that conversation they had was critical to Sisko winning her over, right?
Yeah.
And showing her him from Prime Universe Sisko versus how Mirror Universe Sisko was to her. And it's important moving forward. We're going to see that in other DS9 episodes. That relationship, I think, comes back at some point.
Yeah.
And the importance of that moment that builds between Sisko and Jennifer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that's important moving forward. They're able to get out, and they kind of get caught in one of the hallways on the station. They're getting shot at, and then they're able to get out of there. And unfortunately, they come to the airlock, and then there's the corpse of Mirror Universe Rom hanging. I believe he's stabbed or something like that through the chest. So we didn't get Mirror Universe Rom very long. We get that one little scene that he's in the rebellion group, and then he's dead after that. So now they've killed off Quark and Rom in the Mirror Universe, right?
Brothers are gone.
Two
Yeah.
of our favorite Ferengi, right? It's unfortunate. I'd like to have seen more of Mirror Universe Quark, to be honest with you. I mean, we both said before how much we love Quark, and we love Nog too. Nog is an incredibly smart engineer. He lacks a little bit of social common sense, but very smart engineer on DS9, as we learn moving forward in the show. So it kind of stunk that they killed both them off, but
would have been funny if the mirror universe of Quark, if the mirror universe of him was like some sort of a great philanthropist, he was all about
I would have liked to have, honestly, that would have been funny. I would have liked to have seen Quark like his brother Gala, like this weapons dealing, like mercenary for hire, like fighter guy. Like, oh, he's got a bar on the side, but he goes out and does the intendant's business and goes out and kills people and assassinates them. That would have been a much different Quark than I think we were used to seeing.
Yeah.
The Mirror Universe Quark we got was a much less confident, much more scared of his own shadow kind of a character than he was this sneaky Weasley, Ferengi dealing person in the Prime Universe. But very interesting though, Chris. So they run to the ore processing center. They get themselves hunkered down, and then they just let him in.
Yeah.
And Sisko's like, yeah, we let you in, but I set the auto destruct sequence, and where everybody's going to die in like 9 minutes or something like that, right? And then she's like, yeah, right, you're bluffing. And then she goes to stop it, and the station's like, no, the authorization code's been changed. And she's like, oh, maybe he is serious.
Yep. Yeah. And I like it. They're looking at each other, the intendant. And she's like, she's realizing, oh, yep, he's not bluffing. And what is it? She says, oh, okay. She goes, okay, well, give me the code, and you guys will be able to escape. I'll let you live. And he's like, no. I'll get us on the ship, and we'll go on the ship, and then I'll give you a code. So he was smart right there. And you see some reaction shots from Jennifer, which I thought was nice, right? She was like, oh, okay, this is a different kind of circumstance, a different Sisko for sure. And so finally that was smart, and they're able to leave. And I like it because the intendant's like, I'm gonna hunt you down.
Yeah, right.
Sisko's like, well, go ahead and try. So that was cool.
It's the cat and mouse game again, right? We even saw that with the Mirror Universe Sisko. Mirror Universe Sisko played a cat and mouse game with her.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the Mirror Universe, a lot of cat and mouse. And I think it's what makes the Mirror Universe so much fun, right? This idea of, almost like a Tom and Jerry, right? Like, I'm going to get you, and then I'm going to get you, and then I'm going to hunt you down. Oh, you keep good luck trying, and blah, blah, blah. But I did a special guest decided to make his way into the room.
Yeah.
So
JJ.
It's kind of hard to see it in here. It's dark, but yeah, he decided to push the door open and come in and say hello. So now he's on my lap with me.
Oh, that is wonderful.
So, yeah, he's very small right now. He's only 9 weeks old, as I said, but there he is.
Oh, he's so cute.
You making your first appearance on the podcast, aren't you, buddy? Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. So we got our dog buddies with us. What more could we ask for?
The dogs are there.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a really fun episode. And so Sisko gets away. They get away, and they go to the back to their lair, right? The Alliance hideout. and Sisko has to leave. But I don't remember Sisko actually telling Jennifer that he's from an alternate universe, but I think he kind of hints at it a little bit. I think she starts to figure out. I think she even says like, "Oh, you're not my husband" or whatever, or something like that, right? I don't remember the specific dialogue, but she figures out he's not her actual husband from her universe.
I really liked this exchange because she says, "Oh, so he's dead," and he says,
Yeah.
She kind of confirms. She says at first, like, "Oh, he's dead, isn't he?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm really sorry." And and she's like, "Well, who are you?" And he doesn't answer that. He goes, "Well, ask Smiley. He's gonna fill you all in, right?" So she knows who to go to. She knows he's a version of Ben Sisko. Probably like suspects who he is, but
yeah, she deduced it on her own. I think from the discussion they had in those quarters, which was so critically important moving forward. Honestly, that one discussion helped turn or save the rebellion from the Alliance. Otherwise, had that not happened, they either would have killed her, or she would have made this device that would have maybe destroyed the rebellion.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very important piece.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely, it was absolutely. Yeah, so I like that, and I like the little exchange where Dax and Jennifer are like talking to each other for a little bit, and who's it that says? I think Jennifer's like, "Oh, we've got a lot in common." Dax and Jennifer. So I thought that was pretty funny, and
yeah. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then after that, Sisko's like, "Okay, now it's time for me to return to my universe," and then he's able to go. So, yeah. This is who.
Yeah, that. Oh, sorry, Chris.
No,
There's a little lag, but there's an exchange there. We talk about the end where Jennifer says, "Why don't you start by telling me what happened to my husband? He's dead, isn't he?" And he's like, "I'm sorry," and she's like, "Don't be." So she doesn't miss her version of her husband because of the way he was, and I think she appreciates this version of Sisko that she was able to have some interaction with, and he helped her to see that she couldn't continue doing what she was doing.
Yeah, that was important.
Yeah,
I think if I recall correctly, we'll see more of Jennifer actually in the other DS9 Mirror Universe episodes.
Yeah, I think they bring her back, which is smart. I believe she becomes one of the leaders of the rebellion at some point, which would make sense. She's a scientist or engineer of some kind in this mirror universe, and therefore important to the rebellion's success.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, this was this episode really had me thinking quite a bit, Chris. These ideas of alter egos, of good versus evil, internal struggle and strife. There were so many things that happened that made me think, like, what would I do? Which is what Star Trek does so well, right? Is this idea of telling a story and posing questions or making you think through things, challenging social norms or challenging ideas or values and stuff, and saying, well, is that really good, or is it not? Is it popular opinion, or is it, I mean, there's so many things, and this episode was no different. You could just take this episode for face value, which is a fun mirror universe episode with some action and things. But if you dig down deep, like we've discussed, I think you start to question about, well, would the alternate version or versions of myself, would they be good people? Right? Like, would they have the same morals and values that I have? Would they think the same? Would they act the same? I mean, the answer is probably no to some of that. But how would they respond? How would they act? That's kind of, would I meet myself and go, wow, this guy's a piece of crap. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is garbage. You know what I mean? Like, there's just really made me think, like, man, I wonder what I would be like in an alternate timeline. Like, how would I be now versus who I am today? I don't know if you had those thoughts, but this episode really had me thinking, because we see that interplay and that comparisons of Sisko's from Mirror Universe and Prime Universe.
Yeah. I think that is excellent. That is great. Some of the thoughts that I had are similar in that I was thinking about people and the yin and yang that is like present in people, and that dividing line, right? And so how easy we live in that dividing line between yin and yang, when we recognize and kind of embrace those characteristics, both light and dark characteristics of our personalities. And then how it can be explored if the dark traits of a personality take over. Like, how does that manifest itself into a person? Or if the light, if the light side of the personality takes over, how does that manifest itself? Or if you embrace both of those equally and kind of do that, and you're in that line, how does that manifest itself into a person? That's what I was thinking about when I was observing and kind of seeing Sisko, like, in this circumstance, and seeing him learn about himself and his conversation with Jennifer, and his conversations, with Dax and with Smiley. And I thought, how in a way, what a gift that is, like, to be taught that, like, about yourself. Like, hey, this is you in a different circumstance, in a different reality. This is who you are. And what a gift to have that self-knowledge. Like, Sisko gets that gift of self-knowledge here. Captain Picard has been given that gift of self-knowledge through Q, right? I'm thinking about the other captains, if they really get that sense of self-knowledge. It's not coming to me right now with Archer or Janeway or Kirk. Maybe Kirk does in the episode where there's the transporter accident, but it's like a rare and special gift. Like, here's you.
Yeah, I would say maybe a little bit for Archer, this idea of the temporal Cold War and seeing the future of things and the role that the Enterprise plays in their part of the timeline and so forth. So maybe a little bit on a more of a larger scale rather than an specific individual introspective kind of thing.
Yeah.
With Janeway, I know she gets visited by Q once, but I don't know that. Yeah, I there probably is an episode or episodes where she has some of that, but not necessarily in this way that like Picard had and where now Sisko has. And Sisko gets some of it too because of all the visits he has from the prophets, right? From the wormhole aliens. He gets a lot of that from that perspective as well in his role as the emissary.
Oh yeah, actually, thank you that you brought that up. Right, I'm so glad, because I had that fleeting thought. The Prime universe of Sisko is this. He's an emissary. He's this revered person, right, by the Bajorans. He's got connection with the prophets, and so it's got, in the Prime universe of Sisko, it's this huge positive kind of thing for him, right? And how does he internalize that for his own ego? Right, he doesn't make a big deal of about it, but he has to. I'm sure he thinks about it a lot. But
he doesn't want to be the emissary. He doesn't think that's him.
Yeah.
He has to be convinced. There's a lot of convincing that has to go on, both from Kira when she kind of starts to believe it. You get Vedics and people that are behind him. I mean, obviously, Vedic Win, Kai Win is not a believer of him as the emissary. And then later on, she kind of gets to that point where she believes it. But like, there's a lot of convincing that has to be done to get him to believe that, he's the emissary.
Yeah. And in the mirror,
we learn that at the end of the show, right? We learn that Sisko's mom is was one of the prophets or something like that, right? Like she has some connection to the prophets, and that's why he becomes the way he is and everything.
Yeah. Mirror universe version, he'd be like anti-emissary. He's like the opposite
Well,
of that.
yeah. In this version, he's not, right?
Yeah.
He's just another dude. He's another Terran. And a
Yeah.
much different route. And that's kind of what goes back to this idea of what would I be like if I had taken an alternate path in life? How would that
Mhm.
shape who I am today? And we know that it would. Had you taken a different path, Chris, you'd be shaped differently. You would almost be guaranteed to be. There'd be certain aspects of it to be the same, of course, but there would be many things about you that would be different than who you are today. And I think that's kind of this idea we're getting, this case study of Sisko. I love that you brought up In the Pale Moonlight, because In the Pale Moonlight showed that Sisko is capable of those things.
Yeah.
And this idea of what are we as a human being capable of? Well, there's a lot of people out there that do a lot of evil that probably you wouldn't have thought were capable of that when they were younger. And then things happen, or they go through stuff, and all of a sudden they become capable of doing something that they would have never thought capable. Or you always hear that, oh, this person was a mass murderer, but they were such a quiet neighbor. I never would have thought they were capable of that.
Yeah.
Right. I bet you Sisko, when he's learning about his other version of himself, maybe thinks to himself, man, I didn't realize I was capable of this.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the big rock I take away from this episode is, as a human being, what am I capable of? I think to myself sitting here right now talking to you, well, I'm not capable of X, Y, and Z. But what if I went through certain things? Would that then make me capable of doing or saying those things? It's possible. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I hope I never have to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean? That's kind of what really took over my thoughts as I rewatched this episode.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. And this episode is acknowledging that, hey, this is in you, right? So, and that's the gift of self-knowledge.
Yeah.
Going your capacity for darkness, your capacity for mayhem and chaos, your capacity for evil, right?
Yeah.
Hey, that's there, that's in you. And this is a gift that you have to recognize that it's there.
Yeah. And some people are going to say, some people believe that humans by nature are good. I disagree. I think by nature, humans are not good. I think that we have to be taught and we have to learn that we are not, that we have to, there's certain things, certain inalienable things, certain values and principles they're being part of a society that we have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be contributing members of society. And so that's kind of where, I look at it like, yeah, as human beings, we're not inherently good. I think we're inherently evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to be taught to do good. You don't have to teach somebody to do bad. Think about it, right? As a kid, right? If you're a little kid, you don't have to teach a kid to be naughty or teach a kid to, act out or whatever. You have to teach them how to behave. You have to teach them values and principles and hey, we don't do X, Y, and Z, or we need to be respectful and things like that. That's not inherent in us, I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that, well, people are inherently good, I think is, to me, bogus. I think there are people who are inclined, but it all depends on what you've been taught and the life experiences you have and how that shapes you. So my 2 cents on it, I guess.
No, I gotcha. So so this is who Sisko reminded me of, the when Sisko slips into his mirror universe version of himself.
Yeah.
If you, and I don't recall, I don't think you've seen it, but it really reminded me of Roy Batty from Blade Runner. And this is Rutger Hauer's character. Rutger Hauer's character. I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong. I'm just not, my words are spilling over. But Roy Batty is very charismatic. He's got loyal followers. You never know what he's thinking. He's manipulative. He's kind of crazy. And yeah, that's who came to my mind when I was thinking of the mirror version of Sisko, because he walks into Sisko, the mirror, he walks into that room, and he's able to get all of those other rebels like to follow him. And he punches Bashir in the face, and he's saying these crazy things like, now they're scared of us. And he laughs like this maniacal, like uncontrollable laugh. Like he'll bring that out, and then everyone like will rally around him. So yeah, if you ever see that Blade Runner with Roy Batty, that's who.
The original Blade Runner or the second one?
Original.
Oh, well, I've seen the original. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I've seen the director's cut, I think.
Yeah. So that's nice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I definitely can see that. But yeah, well, Chris, this was another great deep dive. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We love diving deep into these things. We love talking about not only things that we're passionate about, but really digging down into the next layers of stuff. And on the surface, this doesn't seem like a very deep episode, but when you kind of peel back the layers a little bit, peel back the onion, you go, yeah, there's more to this, I think, than maybe meets the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is really neat talking about this particular episode so many years later, how it affects us. I think it's great. And this inspired a lot of science fiction ideas in modern science fiction or science fiction not too long ago. These types of mirror universe episodes, they've had whole series that have done this. If people haven't seen Fringe, Fringe is there's a parallel universe in Fringe too, right?
Yeah.
That you can,
yeah,
this is great.
Yeah, definitely was. So yes, well, thank you everybody so much all over the interwebs and the globe.
Yes.
Hopefully in Antarctica too.
Yes.
For listening and tuning in. We very much appreciate it. And we love doing this. It's a blast. So if you haven't already, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching us there, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us there. This is episode number 3 of our Spotlight series. Our first little go through of our Spotlight series is dedicated to the Mirror Universe. So we'll be up again the next time we do this with another DS9 Mirror Universe episode. But at the time of this recording coming up next weekend, we're going to have the lovely Erica LaRose with us to discuss her career and discuss her time on Shuttlepod Show and what it's been like being a host and types of things she's learned about herself and about the process and the show. And it's going to be a wonderful time. So we look forward to that. And then, of course, we have Matt Williams coming up in a couple weeks, the legendary Hollywood producer and show creator of the greatest sitcom in television history, Home Improvement, in my opinion, my favorite. So look forward to chatting with the two of them. We're going to have a blast with that. We're going to learn a ton, as we always do. And I know we're both excited for those, Chris.
It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for them. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really will be. So we'll be back with another Spotlight episode in the very near future, I'm sure. But until then, thank you as always for tuning in and watching and listening to us all over. We appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt Podcast.